You know, I think it's impressive how much the word soul in video games has influenced what people unconsciously expect a game to be like. So imagine my surprise when I saw that a game called Soulstice was less about playing as someone whose movement rivals that of a geriatric turtle, and more about a Kentaro fan blitzing around the screen alongside her dead sister. We're not even 30 seconds into this video, and I already have to give the game props just for that. How can one dude corrupt my sense of expectations that badly? Anyway, this is Soulstice. So back in 2021, I was watching E3. Eyes glazed over as my smooth gamer brain tried to retain the multiple hours of footage being shown on screen. But then, a game called Soulstice was shown, and I was immediately intrigued to see that this was a spectacle fighter, inspired by titles like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. Seriously, all of 4 seconds of gameplay footage should probably fill you in on that. And I think it especially caught my interest because this game was being made by what seems to be a rather new developer, Reply Game Studios. And I really couldn't remember the last time that I saw an indie spectacle fighter in the same realm as DMC. And it seems like I wasn't the only one struggling to come up with examples either. I mean, for Christ's sakes, the first article I clicked on while searching up this inquiry brought up Bloodborne? So seeing something like Soulstice had me thinking, alright, that's interesting, I'll keep an eye on this. Anyway, fast forward to present month, and I get an email. A representative of Reply Game asked if I wanted to showcase their newest title. I mentioned how I was already aware of their title and already had some interests, and well, here we are. So while this is indeed a sponsored video, I was more than likely going to check this game out anyways, and I suspect I probably would have brought it up on Twitter or something. But now, I'm here to give you the rundown in video form, to help you on your way should you decide to give this game a go. Soulstice places you into the shoes of 2 sisters. Briar, a woman who looks about as warm and welcoming as a cactus in Greenland, who is also capable of turning various beings into paste, and Lute, a combat Casper with magical powers who also comes equipped with rave hands. The duo are known as a Chimera, a type of weapon serving the Order of the Ashen Blade, and they have been sent to save whatever is left of the fallen city of Ilden by closing a veil tear, which is currently allowing monstrosities known as wraiths to invade the ruins of the settlement. And their second objective is, of course, destroying every single crate along the way because they contain rock candy. Gameplay-wise, Soulstice functions very much like the games that inspired it. Briar is equipped with a multitude of weapons, the ability to jump and dash cancel strikes, juggle enemies, and you're even awarded extra style points if you alternate between weapons and attack strings. Seriously, if you're at all a fan of spectacle fighters, Replay Games did a pretty damn good job recreating the feel of these types of titles, right down to rankings based on how flashy, fast, and not getting hitty you are, and getting rewarded extra XP at the end of missions for how well you did. So yeah, this is a game that wears its inspiration on its chest, loud and proud. And hell, in some cases it even surpasses them. Hey, so you know Dante's Stinger, right? You know, it's a pretty good gap closer. A pretty classic move in his arsenal. Yeah, well, Briar thinks it sucks, because her equivalent move goes so goddamn far it could take her around the planet 3 times. But what sets Soulstice apart from other titles is its heavy focus on these 2 protagonists working together. Sure, Briar is the one who handles the swishy slashy, hammy slammy, whippy slippy, punchy wunchy, I'm running out of words, gameplay, but Lute handles just about all your defensive options that aren't the dodge button. She's able to slow enemies during the startup of their attacks, she functions as a parry, and she can even nullify projectiles coming at you. All of this on top of her already being an extra source of damage alongside Briar. And speaking as someone who grew up in an era where a lot of Durotagonist characters were either useless or a hindrance, I was pleasantly surprised to see that this seemingly innocuous ghost girl can really rock some socks. Before I got my key to this game, I was playing the demo, right? And this gameplay system truly clicked for me at the end boss of said demo. Seeing Lute casually deflect 5 rapid projectiles like she's from goddamn Dragon Ball was honestly quite the treat. She's even able to sustain a field type in one of 2 flavors, blueberry or strawberry, in order for Briar to be able to damage or interact with specific entities. So the focus on teamwork here is very much ingrained. Once I got a hold of this and stopped stopped getting hit in the face, I really started to enjoy the aesthetic of the sisters working together. Hell, the focus on the two of them even extends to a gauge called Unity. I would say that you fill said gauge by simply being good at video games, but to be more specific, not getting hit, using loot effectively, and stringing together a variety of different attacks and weapons, all of that helps towards filling the gauge. And once filled, you can spend it to activate either a flashy cinematic attack that raises your dopamine levels, or to go into Rapture State, a mode that allows you to blitz around the screen while being able to ignore enemy resistances before ending that spectacle in a finisher. There's also another mode that Briar can enter, but it's not exactly desirable. But yeah, all this works together quite nicely, though I'm pretty bad at maintaining unity. And like you would expect from a game like this, over time you'll find yourself getting new weapons, from a chain whip to a bow to a pair of dual-wielded cannons. And of course you use XP to unlock new attack strings for said weapons. And something that I also really appreciate is the game making it clear that your weapons are more than just for placing the style meter. Each one is designed to have clear purposes and weaknesses seen on their upgrade screen. As someone who likes for their weapons to have different properties from one another, this made me quite happy. It adds substance to when you decide to switch to a certain weapon mid-combo, like, oh, this dude flies, get the shit off me, let me use this instead. Outside of fighting, Soulstice follows a very familiar formula. Go through a level, gather shinies, do the occasional platforming, and scrounge around for some secrets with some puzzles thrown in. So more often than not, you'll find yourself replaying levels. And this game wants you to replay it. And to be honest, if I wasn't on a time restraint to get this video out, I probably would have spent way more time trying to get those damn diamond ranks. But also, scouring missions is how you find permanent upgrades as well as challenge rooms, the latter of which I'm god-awful at and had to return to later. So do expect a handful of reasons to rerun through missions. Not only are your runs graded at the end, but also, you can replay through them to continue getting materials needed to upgrade your skills without needing to keep progressing through the story, if that's your cup of joe, because it's not at all necessary. For me personally, even though that I'm so inept that I tended to use Briar's face as a shield more often than not, I still found myself getting enough XP for what I needed. And on the topic of XP, I want to give a massive applause for something that this game does that I think needs to be done more often. You can reset your perks whenever you want with no cost. I almost couldn't believe that, because typically, systems like this require some rare, difficult to find item, or maybe they only refund a small portion of what you had to spend to unlock that skill in the first place. But here, if a skill doesn't work the way you thought it would, or you need a little bit of extra XP to get a more enticing skill, boop, here's your points back. It's really great, and you should take advantage of it whenever possible. It also helps immensely because remember Briar's Rapture mode? Well, its effects and finisher depends on the kind of perks that Lute has. So if you're not a fan of your finisher, you can just respec and try another one. But yeah, it's a great system, so I felt like it deserved some extra highlighting. But now, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But I will give you some tips to get you on your way. Firstly, enemy priority is pretty important. Whilst I'm far from an expert at these type of games, my general advice would be to focus on any ranged entities first and leave the slower, tankier lads for last. So for example, these large knight guys can be handled pretty easily if you use Briar's charged gauntlet strikes. But it's kinda hard to do this admittedly slow string if you're being harassed by spear chuckers. Yeah, so get rid of them first. Second, if you've eliminated most or all ranged enemies in a skirmish, the air is the safest place to be. So try to get into an airborne string as soon as possible. Most grounded enemies won't be able to reach you, and even the ones who can still be avoided through the use of Briar's air dash. Speaking of, Briar can reset her air strings twice before having to land. Once with her aerial jump, and again with her air dash. Combining them together can let her wail on a target for thrice as long as normal. The Unity special attacks that you do are different depending on the weapon that you use, and each one is activated at the end of a specific attack string. But all the game checks for is if you're doing the last attack in that string. So if you wanted to do, say, the hammer's Unity attack, it'd be faster if you did a Unity combo with a sword and then ended it with a hammer strike. This will get you the hammer Unity finisher without having to slog through the hammer's slow strings. Lute's defensive capabilities are really good, but she can only deal with one target at a time by default. So I highly recommend getting any perk that allows her to target multiple foes. It's incredibly helpful since it means less time having to dodge and more time turning enemies into chunks. Speaking of dodging, it's a really good tool for Briar, though if you do it 3 times in a row, she enters a pretty vulnerable cooldown state. You can avoid that though by either attacking or jumping after a second dodge. That'll reset your dodge count and let you do another 2 dodges. Lute's defensive abilities are context sensitive. That is to say, even though you're only using one button, she will react to attacks differently depending on the type of attack that it is and how early or late you are in commanding her to retaliate. It took me a bit to get a hang of this because sometimes I would expect her to completely block an attack only for her to instead put the opponent into slow motion. So it helps to pay attention to how she reacts to each attack. And lastly, certain enemies have a poise mechanic, and as long as they have poise, you cannot launch them until it is gone. Enemies that have it will have this extra bar down here, which will fill up with yellow as you hit them. And once you've filled it up, their poise will break, and then you can get to soaring. And well, that's Soulstice. For a company that seems to only have made 2 other games, I'm honestly really impressed with how much attention was put into this title. Like, yeah, I know that this is a sponsored video, but truly, these aren't honeyed words. The shaking impact on hit with chunky weapons, the clarity in which the UI team designed the contextual actions for loot, the clear research done into what makes other spectacle fighters great, like fluid attack and mobility cancels, and a multitude of systems designed to encourage replayability. The point is, there was some clear care and thought put into this game. Now, could the game be polished more? Of course, like any game could. You know, my main gripes being that the camera can sometimes fight you, and some sound effects on certain hits could be a bit beefier. But if those tiny details are the main issues that stuck out to me, I don't think I need to explain why I have no problem recommending Soulstice to those who are looking to scratch that spectacle fighter itch. And now, please excuse me, as I need to get these ugly bronze medals off me! I am at least a silver gamer!